How do we love God? It's through obeying Him. That's how we love Him. He says, if my people love me, they will obey me. Really? That's how He feels loved. Now, I know there's other ways like worship and things like this, but He wants us to obey Him, and He wants us to do it beginning in our home. This thing's easy to do outside your home. It's very easy for me to love on people and forgive people and to be real spiritual to them outside of my home. But you know, if I'm not doing it in my home, I'm a hypocrite. I'm not going to teach you anything that I'm not doing. I'm just glad my wife sits there. Because a lot of times when I'm teaching this, everybody looks at her, that she's doing this or doing this. If you're not doing this in your home, it's wood, hay, and stubble outside. Does anybody notice how well you're liked by people, how loved they feel by you? If your wife and your children don't, you're a hypocrite. But it's not your fault if you don't know. So we're not looking for fault. It's just a fact. I'm giving you some tools to put in your toolbox to learn how to love the one in your home. That's where it begins. Everybody else is easy. You know that. It's a piece of cake outside your home. But in your home, are you going to do it there? You know, there's a lot of smart people in here. There is. And, you know, when your spouse has got a problem, you probably got the answer. Yeah. Are you a fixer? You want to fix your spouse? How do they like it? I think I run out of battery. How do they like it when you try to fix them? What if they come to you and say, you know what? You say, I know what you should do. Ooh. I know what you need to do. How do you feel about that when you're trying to just share with your spouse and they're trying to fix you? That's what we think we should do, isn't it? It's called unsolicited advice. I didn't ask you. I didn't ask you. I just wanted you to hear me. I just want to share this with you. I don't want to be fixed. But we think it's our job to fix. I used to try to fix my wife all the time. And she'd try to fix me. But, you know, in reading the Word, I saw that Jesus didn't go to fix anybody. He didn't stop along the street and say, you got a problem and I can fix you. He waited for them to come, didn't he? And when they came and asked him, he gave them the information. But he waited for them to ask. And I've learned to do that with my wife. When she comes and tells me this problem, this issue that's going on, I'll say, is this something that you just want to share with me? Or would you like for some input? Would you like some advice? No. No. And if she says, I just want you to listen, I say, okay. Guess what I don't do? Give her advice. Because, you know, when we say God doesn't go against our free will, is that right? If I go against her free will and try to give her advice, even though it's good advice, this is an offense. Even though it's good advice. So I don't need to be doing something that even God doesn't do, giving advice. So I asked that question. Do you want my input, or you just want me to listen? If she wants me to just listen, that's all I do. But now if there's an offense that she's sharing with me, it's a different story. She's offended. Because now she's included me in the offense. That's different. So if she's included me in the offense, and we don't forgive, we're into gossip and slander. We're into gossip and slander. We're not forgiving. We're not doing what God tells us to do when we're offended. So before she leaves, I'll say, sweetheart, thank you for sharing that with me. Even though I'm not going to give her advice, I want us to forgive and to bless this person. Okay? Any questions about that? Any questions about anything else? Come on, guys. What questions you got? We're getting into that time now. What questions do you have? What about this? What about that? Okay?
Can we judge motives?
Can you judge motive?
Like, is it fair to the person if we know they...
I know why you did that. Is that what you're saying? I know why they did it.
No, I mean, like, someone does something sacrificially for you, but the motive is not right.
The motive is not right. A lot of times my motive is not right. I'm just sacrificing. You see? But my attitude is going to be right. You see, a lot of times, we as men, they say, I want you to want me. Well, that might not be possible. She may not want me right then. She may not want to be intimate with me right then. But she doesn't say no. But I want her to want me. But she doesn't. You see, I can't make her want me. It's not time for her. It may be time for me. Our sexual alarm clocks have went off at different times. But she won't say no. Or she may say, not tonight. Tonight's not a good night. I'm not feeling well. And she'll negotiate with me and say, how about first thing in the morning? No problem. We've negotiated to a yes. Huh? And that turns out we have problems like that sexually in relationships. Sex is another big issue. Whoa. People that are not having sex, hardly ever. Used to. But because of the things that we've talked about earlier in the seminar, it comes to an end. And a lot of women say, well, I just feel used. And to be quite frank with you, most women in marriages do feel used. Because if this thing's not happening often, then every chance he gets, he's going to try to hit a home run. He wants every kiss to lead to sex. He wants every hug, every embrace. He wants to lay down on the couch with you and touch where he shouldn't be touching, where he wants to touch because he wants to have sex. And then you, because you're not pushing, stop! Man, every time you kiss me, every time you hug me, every time you cuddle with me, it's all about this. You know how used I feel? Huh? Because you will feel used. It's all about sex. One of the reasons that you get that problem, because he is trying, because that's the only, he's hoping this is going to be one of the times that you'll give into it. But the more he does that, the less you want to have sex with him. It's just a fact. Washing the dishes, and here he comes. Stay away from me. I'm washing the dishes. You're cooking on this. Away. You don't want him to come over and sit beside you. Go to your special chair.
Go to your cave.
What's going on there? We have a lack of agreement. There's no agreement about this part of life. And since we don't have an agreement, he's just trying every chance he gets. And the more he tries, the more she feels used to push it away and push it away and push it away. And the less frequent it becomes, less and less frequent. Women who don't feel loved are not very sexual. Men, women are put into their sexual being by feeling loved. And I've been teaching you all day how to do that. How to love your wife. Wives who do not feel loved feel used. And you're going to have this issue. Just fact. So, put into practice what I've been teaching you all day. Be that sacrificial man. Don't be finding fault with her, and when she complains, take that complaint and push it away. Make a change within you. Sacrifice and make that change. A lot of women say, well, shouldn't this be spontaneous? Like it was when we were dating, when we first got married. I said, if it was spontaneous, you couldn't go to the grocery store. Somebody might be having sex in the aisle over there. You couldn't go to the movies. You couldn't go shopping. All the spontaneous sex happening over here. I said, even when you thought it was spontaneous, it wasn't. One of you had it planned. I said, the problem that you've got is you do not have an agreement. I said, a typical conversation. We have some really intimate conversations in my office. And I'll look at her and I'll say, you know, if you felt loved by your husband, if you felt loved by him, how often would you want to be intimate with him? She says, really? Yeah, really. She says, once a week? He says, and he looks, really? Because it's once every 2 months right now. Once a week? You would be with me once a week? She says, yes, I would. I said, if you could be with your wife as often as you wanted to be, how often that would be? He says, usually about 3 times. Well, we got a math problem now. So what if we negotiate? There's a number between 1 and 3. Huh? 2. So what if we agree that you guys are going to be intimate twice a week? But you got to do your job, sir, so she feels loved by you. Oh, I'll do my job. Now, what day of the week are we going to do this? Ma'am, you got the kids? You got the schedule? What's a good day? What's 2 good days? Oh, wow. See, church is on Sunday. That's not good. Saturday night's not good, so we got church. Friday night's a good night. Tuesday night's a good night. Tuesdays and Fridays. I said, okay, what time? Oh, put the kids together at this time. Dinner, 10 o'clock. 10 o'clock. 10 o'clock on Tuesday night and Friday night. That'll be good. Okay, now, 10 o'clock on Tuesday and Friday night, we don't start to get ready. We got our showers. We're in bed. And we're ready for this thing to happen. Okay, okay. Agree. Okay. Now, the rest of the week, you don't touch her in any sexual way whatsoever. 0. I said, because if he knows it's going to be those 2 times, he's not trying to hit a home run the rest of the week. So now when he comes over to kiss you, hug you, cuddle with you, you can receive that, can't you? She says, well, if he's not trying to have sex with you, yeah, I can't. In fact, that's what I want. I've been pushing away what I wanted because I felt used. You see how this can work? I said, okay. Now let's say that Tuesday comes around and you got company at 10 o'clock. You got to turn the lights on. Oh, sun's got to go. Sorry, you got to leave. So you don't lose. You just move it to the next night. Or there could be not feeling well. I mean, life happens. Well, you just move it to the next night. Okay? Now, ladies, a lot of you don't know this. Don't you want your husband to come over to you without asking him to kiss you? Without asking him to hug you and hold you? Don't you want that? I mean, it's nice. Would you say, would you come over and hug and cuddle with me? It's nice that he will do it when you ask. But what if you don't have to ask? Men, they shouldn't have to ask you to spend time with them. Do you want her to ask you to have sex? Huh? Don't you want, huh? Start meeting these needs. You see? Meet her needs in non-sexual ways. Men want you to initiate. They want you to want them. And if you don't want them, change your attitude. Sacrifice. Because sometimes he might not want to come over and have a seat with you and hug you and hold you, but he's going to sacrifice and do it because he knows you feel loved by him. And you don't touch her in a sexual way any other time except for those 2 times. Questions?
It can actually go both ways. How do you get your spouse to be passionate about the things that you're passionate about?
By asking them, not to be passionate, will you do this with me? If you know that your spouse likes that, then do it with them. I shouldn't have to keep asking my wife to do something that I like to do. I said, would you do this with me? The answer is yes. Or she'll negotiate to a yes, you see? And go with the right attitude. So I'm going to go shopping with her. And I'm going to have the right attitude. And she's going to really enjoy this because she really enjoys me going shopping with her.
And she's going to go shoot guns with you because you really enjoy it.
And guess what's going to happen on Friday night? Because she feels so loved by me. You see, the key to this is love. If you feel loved, it changes everything. Now, this is just a starting point, making these 2 times. They can become a natural way just to live life, that you don't have to have an appointment. Okay? But agree. Make agreements. Everything my wife and I do, we agree. When you don't agree, that guy's involved.
That's right.
Okay? You're fussing and you're fighting.
Plan everything but you like.
So, one of the things I would ask you to do on your way home is work out Tuesdays and Fridays. Seriously. Work it out. Talk about it. Okay? And you can take turns. One of you is the initiator on Tuesday, and the other one's the initiator on Friday. Now, whoever's the initiator, your job is to please your spouse in the way they want to be pleased, and it may not be the way that you want to be pleased, because she might want some candlelight and some dinner, and she might want a little dance in the bedroom. Most men just say, get naked, let's go. So it's a little easier to please him than it is her. Okay? But please her. What would you like? What's it supposed to? What's your vision of this? What do you think it should look like? I'd like a little glass of wine, some romantic music, and at least one dance. You got it. What kind of wine you want? I'll be right back. drive to the grocery store. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
What should I keep in mind when I feel like my spouse is constantly taking and I'm giving?
What should I keep in mind
when I feel like my spouse is constantly taking and I'm giving?
when my spouse is constantly
Taking, emotional, just taking, and you're constantly giving, you're preparing the way, you're constantly doing for them, and then what do I need to keep in mind to remember?
Keep in mind that you have taken the place of a mother and a father who did not give.
Okay. That's good.
There's a need. You see, when needs are not met in our childhood, unmet childhood needs do not go away. And so let's say that a child is not affirmed. They've never told them they was proud of them, or they never listened to them. That doesn't go away. Now it gets transferred to you who have taken the place of that mom and dad who did not meet this need. So now instead of being overwhelmed and say, oh man, need, make a promise to yourself. I have taken their place, and I'm going to do a better job than his mother did. I'm going to do a better job than his father did. And I'm going to sacrifice myself and meet this need the best that I can, and you're not going to hear me complain about it. Because you're the only one that can meet this need in a holy way. Mom and dad didn't do it, and you've taken their place. Now, if you don't get that, if you don't meet this need, the need don't go away. Now there's temptation to go outside the relationship to get it met in an unholy way. Now, since that's unholy, it's not really being met. It's just filling a gap for a moment. But you're the only one that can meet this need in a holy way. And so when you see a husband or a wife who's got needs that are just a little bit beyond what you would think is normal, that's because they didn't get it. You see? It's not their fault they didn't get it, and now it's being transferred to you to get it. They might need more attention. They might need to listen to. They might be, real talkative all the time. Don't push them away. Don't do what mom and dad did and push them away. Okay? That's a good question.
And get God involved with that too.
Yeah. Get God involved, because you may have to do a lot of forgiving and asking God to talk to them. And I would actually be forgiving that mother and father.
Yes.
I would forgive that mother and father for not meeting that need that's being transferred to me. I would say, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, whatever their names are, I forgive you for not loving my husband and meeting this need the way that he needed this need to be met by you. I forgive you for not giving him that nurture, not giving him that attention, not paying him attention to him, not affirming him, not telling me that you were proud of him. I forgive you that I'm paying for that. Because it's what you got is something through the generations coming down. And since you are on the cross basically paying for that sin, as you forgive that sin and you go to God with it, you say, Father, I ask you to get involved in this. You see, you want God involved in it because this guy's involved in it. Because that mom and dad did not meet that need. This guy's involved in it, and you're paying the price for that sin. Since you're paying the price for that sin, 1 Peter chapter 2, if you suffer for doing good and you endure it, this is by your stripes, he can be healed. You see it? So you're sacrificing with a good attitude in the place of that mom and dad, where that wound can be healed. Yes, ma'am?
And then to remember to forgive and bless the spouse.
Yes, forgive and bless the spouse, so that you can do that. Because you can't do it with anger. And that question is going to be true for everybody in here to some degree. So everybody in here has got a need that mom and dad, well, most people do, that mom and dad did not meet. And it's being transferred to you. Okay? What are the questions?
And self-forgiveness.
Excuse me?
And then forgiving yourself for not being forgiving.
Well, if you're holding an offense against yourself, you need to forgive yourself. You see, forgiveness is not just for mom, dad. We got spouse, we got others, we got self, we got God. Sometimes we need to forgive God. Not that God has done anything wrong, but it's our perceptions. God, I can't believe you let this happen to me. You can be mad at God. We may need to forgive God, because if you don't forgive Him, guess who's got you? Anytime you don't forgive anyone. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
How do I get to a place where I feel valued and understood by my spouse?
Where you feel valued by your spouse?
Valued and understood.
And understood. Mm-hmm. Well, as he's doing what he's been taught today, that should automatically happen. Okay. Now, what can really throw a problem here is this: in our childhood, when our needs are not being met, then the child wants to reason out why they don't feel loved. And this little guy right here wants to help us. Okay? And so I could be in my bedroom feeling very unloved by my father or my mother, and I'm trying to figure out what is going on here. Why am I not receiving this nurture from my mother or my father? He's going to whisper into here, because I have no worth. Because I'm not good enough. because I'm stupid. Am I created to think that about myself? I'm created in the image of God. Should I think those thoughts about myself? And the answer is no. So where did they come from? Because we adults walk around with these thoughts, don't we? When our spouse does not meet our needs, these thoughts pop into our head. Well, I'm just not good enough. I don't have enough worth for you to do it. I'm just stupid. I don't matter. Well, it came from this guy. Those are thoughts that when he spoke into our mind as a child, we thought it was ourself. We didn't know that thoughts come from 3 different places. We didn't know that he has access to our mind. And so when he spoke into our mind at 5 years old, 6 years old, 7 years old, we thought it was ourself and we agreed with it. And now we've taken that on as truth about self. You see? And we've got a lot of emotions attached to that. So in the present time, when our spouse does something similar to mom and dad, when we believe that lie comes into our mind along with those very strong emotions in the present. So when that happens, now you're offended. Remember what I taught about offense? Now your spouse is taking the place of mom and dad. You're working in the harvest field. Be quick to forgive in the present and speak a blessing so that you're reducing this 489, 487, 486, 485. You see? You're taking away the power of that lie every time that you forgive. So you can work in the harvest field and get rid of it, or you can come to counseling and we can probably get rid of it in 1 or 2 sessions. So you'll never feel that way again because we'll go to the source and origin of it. Okay? Good question. Other questions? Yes, sir.
When you're doing something sacrificially, is it okay to do it for both parties or just the other person?
Who's both parties? You mean yourself?
Spouse and ourselves. Like, say we're doing, I do something for us rather than just my spouse.
Sure. God's going to honor it. Okay? So a lot of times I sacrifice for us. You know, I might have to take a job that I don't really want to take for a while. That's for us. Okay? But I'm going to take that job and I'm doing it with the right attitude to make that money until I can find the job that I want to work at. So it's either one. I'm sacrificing for myself, I'm sacrificing for her, I'm sacrificing for us. But God's going to honor it. The main thing is that there's no unforgiveness attached to these things.
But does the spouse need to be in agreement before you make that sacrifice? That is for us, not just for her.
It depends on what the sacrifice is. If I'm actually going to do something, then I got to make sure she's in agreement with that doing. Yeah. We don't do anything that our spouse hasn't agreed to. She doesn't have to agree to me sacrificing, though, if it doesn't involve her doing something. Because I might just be offended at her. Well, she don't have to agree that I forgive her. I'm forgiving her so this guy don't have me. You see? And I'm asking her to forgive me so he don't have her. All right, good questions. Anything else?
What do you do when things are not done in the right attitude?
What do I do if she doesn't do it in the right attitude? All right. All right. Now that's going to offend me. I'm hurt, right? So I need to go forgive her. I'll be back. I'm going for a walk. Go into the room. Go outside. Forgive her. Transfer it to him. Put it in his hands. Ask him to talk to her and ask him to talk to me. Okay? That's going to happen. But I'm not going to allow it to cause a problem between us because she's got a bad attitude. I'm going to be the priest of the home and go forgive her and speak a blessing over her.
And you may have to do that several times.
I may have to do that several times every day. Yeah. Which I do. She doesn't need to know that I'm hurt, offended, or angry. She doesn't need to know that. It serves no purpose. And that's hard to get across to people. She doesn't need to know? No, what for? Jesus didn't go around doing that to people. You know, I'm mad at you. I'm upset with you. You know, you made me feel. Well, he didn't make them feel anything. Because he didn't have this stuff. He didn't have emotional triggers inside of him. Again, look at it. Did I sin? No. Then she's got something inside of her shouldn't be there, left over. It has nothing to do with me. But I can help her to get free. Did she sin? No. Then I need to help her to get free. You see it? That's a whole different way of looking at this. Other questions?
So what if there is sin involved?
Aha!
How does that look?
That's when you go to the other person. That's Matthew 18. If when your brother, wife, whoever it is, sins against you, there's a time to go and have a talk. Okay? But you don't go accusing. You know, God says that we're not supposed to do this. You've got pornography in your life. I've seen it on your computer, and it's really hurt me that you're looking at pornography. So we really need to get this issue resolved. Would you be willing to go to counseling and see what the root of that is? And he said, well, I was just curious. Okay, if you're just curious, then it's a one-time deal. Would you agree to not do that anymore? I agree. I forgive you for looking at that, and I release you of that. But if you feel like you must go there more, then we need to get in counseling and see what the root of this is. Okay? You can have that talk then. All right? There is a time to go. But most of the stuff's not sin. Okay? What else?
So can you explain again how, and maybe that's a good example, how if whatever the behavior is offends me, then it's sin?
I can't hear you.
A behavior or an action is offensive to me, then it's sin?
Just because you're offended doesn't mean it's sin.
Right.
Okay? I can be offended because it's an emotional trigger within me. The Word of God tells us what sin is. Basically, it's the Ten Commandments. Okay? Now, let's look at something else, since we got a little bit extra time here. You know, it's not unusual for a man or a woman to come in here and say, my spouse is involved in pornography and won't stop, or involved with another person and they won't stop. They're getting drunk every night and they won't stop. They're using drugs and they won't stop. They're being physically abusive to me. What do you do with that? You send them back home? You send them back to it? Well, they're married. What are you going to do with it? Because I hear all the time, I went to my pastor and he says, I have to go home. I have to live with it. I'm married. I can't leave. Haven't you heard that? I'm married and I can't leave. Well, I disagree with that. That's not what the Word of God says. The Word of God says if they are habitually drunk, if they're physically abusive to you, if they are sexually immoral, if they are using this vile anger, this language with you, and will not live at peace with you, you're commanded to leave. Whew. So women, when they come in here and they're telling me when these sins are going on, and I've talked over my husband, he says, you can't leave me, and you're married to me, and you'll submit to me, and you'll submit to this. I said, no. You're a daughter of God. You do not have to submit to sin. You do not have to. The Bible tells you, you leave. Commands you to leave. If you don't leave, you're not obeying God. Now that's a whole different way to look at it, isn't it? If you don't leave, you're disobeying God. It says it right here. Oh, I didn't know it. This is 1 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 9. I have written you in my letter not to associate with sexually immoral people. Not at all meaning the people of this world who are immoral, or greedy, or swindlers, or idolaters. In that case, you would have to leave the world. But I'm writing to you that you must not even associate with anyone who calls himself a brother who is sexually immoral, greedy, an idolater, a slandered, a drunkard, or a swindler. With such a person, do not even eat. Expel the wicked person from among you. She says, but we're married. I says, what does a marriage certificate have to do with you obeying God? It doesn't say unless you're married to this person, does it? It says separate. He does not want you as a daughter or a son of God living in hell on this earth. He wants you living a blessed life. So when someone comes to me with this complaint, I said, this is what you do. Let's say it's a female. You go home and tell your husband that according to the Word of God, that you're commanded to leave him as long as he's in this behavior. And you give him a choice to either stop it or go to counseling so he can stop it. And if he refuses to do either one, then say, I'm sorry. I know that I love you very much and I'm married to you, but God commands me to separate from you in this behavior. Now, in the event that in the future you decide that you're going to stop or you get the help so that you can, we can be back together again, but not until then. Now, that's not meant as punishment. That's meant so they'll miss the fellowship of the relationship enough to either stop the behavior or to get the help so that they can. Okay? And that's not the only scripture that commands you to leave. It's in Ephesians also and in Timothy. It says have nothing to do with them. Okay? Any other questions? Okay? There's things that you have not forgiven each other for. We probably talked about them today. Okay? And you know what they are. You know what your spouse has not forgiven you for. You know what the hurt and you know what the pain is. Again, they're not required to ask you to forgive because this is something you're commanded to do this. But it sure is a whole lot easier if they ask you. It's a lot easier. It's a lot easier to forgive my wife when she comes to me and says, I'm so sorry, will you forgive me? She doesn't have to. I'm required to do it even if she asks or doesn't ask. But it's so much easier. The first opportunity that you get, ask your spouse to forgive you. You know what it is. You've heard it day after day, week after week, month after month. They're hurt. And they're angry. And Satan's got them. Help them to be free by asking them to forgive you. It's a lot easier to forgive when it's asked for. Ask them to forgive you. Don't be proud and keep that in there. That's why God hates this sin the most, pride. Be humble. Be Christ-like. I hurt you. We have fought about this over and over and over and over. I'm sorry that I did this. Will you forgive me? I'm sorry I did that. Will you forgive me? I'm sorry I did this. Will you forgive me? I'm sorry I looked at pornography. Will you forgive me? I'm sorry that I had this friend on Facebook. Will you forgive me? I'm sorry I wouldn't give this relationship up. Will you forgive me? I'm sorry I haven't met your sexual needs. Will you forgive me? I'm sorry that every time I touched you, I've tried to lead it to sex. Will you forgive me? You see? Let's don't leave this record of wrongs. Go home and ask to be forgiven for your wrongs. And forgive each other. And put what you've been taught here today in practice. Be one with each other. One last chance. Is there any other questions?
How do you rebuild trust when you feel like you've asked them to stop doing something?
Okay, that's a good question. How do you rebuild trust? All right. Trust is not automatic. Okay? if you've been asked, whatever it is, let's say it's infidelity, okay? Just because they have agreed to stop the relationship and not have anything to do with that person doesn't mean that you trust them now. Your trust has been violated. Trust has to be earned back. There's got to be what you call restitution paid. And so you're the one, the one that's hurt, the victim is the one who determines what the restitution is. And the victim says, you know what, if you will do this, this, and this, and be constant and consistent with it, you can begin to earn my trust back. You mean I can't have any conversation with that person? Zero. Zero. I don't want you to talk to that person in person, on the phone, text, Facebook, no communication. Cut completely off. I agree. But you set what the restitution is. If they say, I'm not going to do that, that's too much, then they can't earn your trust back. There'll always be a distrust there. So they've got to be willing to meet the restitution. But again, you can negotiate on it. Negotiate on that restitution to a place that you can both agree. Okay? It's a good question. What else?
So what happens if they aren't able to follow through with the negotiation or the decision for restitution?
What if they're not willing to?
Able, if it doesn't happen.
Well, then you can't trust them. This may be the end of the relationship. There's certain sins that God says separate, and it can be permanent. And that's one of them, is infidelity. Okay?
You said previously when we were talking about...
Could you speak up a little bit?
Okay. You said earlier when you were talking about physically abusive or alcoholic or sexually abusive, you also said language. What did you mean by that?
Cussing. Using foul language. Using God's name in vain. There's a certain way that we as sons and daughters of God are to talk to each other. And it's not with those words.